This recording is protected by copyright. No part may be reproduced without the prior permission of the University of South Australia.
So the first speaker this morning is Narasimhan. Narasimhan is going to introduce himself and where he comes from and what role he plays with us in ICAR. But to set the scene, we've known Narasimhan for probably 10 years, and Steve and Narasimhan have a very strong relationship in terms of teaching and improving quality in our Indian allied health students. So can I ask you to welcome Narasimhan, please?
Okay, so good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here, 20th year celebration of ICAR. I'm Narasimhan Swaminathan. I'm from India. I graduated in the year 1998 and I moved into teaching field. I'm teaching physiotherapy students from 2001 after my post-graduation. This presentation is to share with you how International Center for Allied Health Evidence is key in imparting evidence-based knowledge to the entry-level graduates and the impact. You will be able to hear from the students a little later during the course of the presentation. So, conflict of interest, nothing to be declared. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge International Center for Allied Health Evidence, Professor Karen and Dr. Steve, for inspiring and guiding me throughout this process. As Professor Karen said, I could contact them in the, if I correctly remember, in 2006, I sent a mail to Professor Karen. I would like to know more about evidence-based practice because we are not having any champions in our country. We would like to teach, and we would like to learn and teach. And that's how we started getting, and then she gave, this is the website you should look for, and after some time, I could come over here and spend a couple of weeks here to learn the basic techniques in evidence-based practice, and I started running many workshops, and then later I started teaching evidence-based practice. That's how the journey. Father Muller Medical College, where I was working in India since 2003, I could develop the curriculum for evidence-based practice, what I learned from ICAR, and I could implement it successfully. And then I moved on to Malaysia. Currently I'm holding a position of a Dean, Faculty of Health and Life Sciences of INTI International University, Malaysia. I moved there to revise the curriculum, and again I could introduce evidence-based practice curriculum in this university also for entry-level physiotherapy graduates. I'll be moving back to India by this month end because I feel my position, my presence is much needed for my country back. Okay, so we all know that evidence-based practice. Yesterday when I was seeing the presentations from South Africa and other countries, you all are very far ahead. But in India, still we are struggling. Even the evidence-based medicine, the clinical practitioners are not looking for evidence-based practice. But as an allied health profession, we understood evidence-based practice could be a tool to achieve professional autonomy. We have a case study, that's what I'm going to discuss, how we could use evidence-based practice to be an autonomous practitioner within the medical school and within the hospital. So evidence-based practice is a key. So this is what we are going to discuss in this session. So how we developed evidence-based practice curriculum, the different teaching methods used, and the impact which created among the entry-level graduates, and the challenges what we faced, and a bit of a future direction what we are looking for. Okay. So the two countries, I'm going to share the experience of mine, which I had India and Malaysia. Both are developing countries. Of course, Malaysia is fast developing country. India is still developing country. So that's our two institute, I said. 2007, we started implementing evidence-based practice in Father Muller Medical College, a charitable institution, which is one of the largest hospital in that part of India, which is called Mangalore. It has 1,250 bedded hospital, a teaching hospital. So I was heading a physiotherapy department there. So I had an opportunity to introduce evidence-based practice into physiotherapy curriculum with lots of restrictions. We'll discuss that later. And then I moved on to INTI International University 2014. There I had a little freedom because the university it's based US-based university. We have a very good learning management system. Blackboard, which is called, you all may be aware of that. So I could use that, and the method of teaching was different, and I could see the influence. Yesterday you might have heard my colleague talking how we could impart the evidence-based practice knowledge to the physiotherapy students. That's Mangalore. It's very beautiful. Adelaide and Mangalore has a similarity. Steve will acknowledge that, because again, we have the Arabian Sea on the side, and then you go to the west, we have a beautiful Western Ghats. So same like Adelaide. You know, the weather, of course, we have only 3 weathers: hot, hotter, hottest. Okay, fine. So that's beautiful Mangalore. So this is what the physiotherapy profession in India. 1947, the first physiotherapy center was started. And then we moved on to the diploma program, started in 1953. 1975 was the first undergraduate, the graduate level program, and 1980s postgraduate program, and 2010 onwards, PhDs are offered in various physiotherapy universities. But when we analyzed, this is the entry level course, 4 years and 6 months, what we did, because there is no regulatory body. Till today, there is no regulatory body in India to govern the allied health sciences, especially when it comes to physiotherapy. So different universities have their different curriculum. They form the curriculum and they run the course. There is no uniformity. So that was our first work. We wanted to see how the curriculum, whether is it aligned with the international standard. That was the funded project, and we analyzed the curriculum of various universities, and then we prepared the blueprint. This was the study which we analyzed the curriculum of 29 universities by independent assessors by using the WCPD guidelines. The WCPD has given a blueprint. Based on that, we analyzed the curriculum. So we prepared a checklist, and we analyzed, and we identified various key areas. For this presentation, I'll be focusing only on some of the core areas were given least important, especially evidence-based practice in the entry-level curriculum. So that means the students, those who are passing out, they're not aware of the entry-level, the evidence-based practice at the entry level. So what is the reason? We went into the focus group discussion to identify why these kind of things are not available. We invited the academicians and researchers. Even we also involved some of the other healthcare professionals like orthopedic surgeons and neurologists to give their feedback. There are various reasons identified, and then we started. Of course, I'll be focusing only on how we introduced evidence-based practice curriculum. We could introduce this only within that university, Father William Medical College, because there the university system, the government will have a university, it's a central university. That university will give affiliation to the colleges. That means the university is the governing body. The institutes will run the course under the university. That means far away. The university is 400 kilometers from the institute. So how the university goes, once a year, the experts come to the university to inspect the facilities with a checklist, and if everything is done, okay, the affiliation is granted. That's how the course is run. The system is totally different compared to Australia. But we could introduce, that's what I said, this course was designed specially for this. Of course, the curriculum, the university prescribed evidence-based practice, but how it has to be done and all those things were not defined clearly. And we went to that. This is the course we introduced. In the 6th semester, we introduced evidence-based practice. What we used is a traditional training. We used to give a case scenario and identify a PICO on that, and we build on the same case. We go and search, and we do with a group, and then identify and a price, and then we see how they can. The advantage of this, one thing with this kind of teaching, the university, the students has the clinical training immediately after their theory training. For example, a 3rd, 4th semester student will have their theory sessions in the morning, and then afternoon they go back to their clinicals because it's hospital attached. They see their patients. That was very, very, very useful, and we could see how they evolve. And then later, we introduced, they need to prepare a research project. It was mostly a systematic review kind of. It's not a full-blown systematic review. What they learn, they can formulate their PICO, and they could appraise the papers by using the tools, and they were submitting. The challenge is what we faced with the focus group discussion, and when we started to implement this, experts, mentors, and champions, nobody was there. If I need anything, I need to look for Professor Karen, Dr. Steve. That's how ICA influenced. That's a positive impact ICA created from Adelaide to Mangalore. So curricular support, as I told, there was no curricular support. The accessibility to the database. Fortunately, this is with a medical university, and we could negotiate to get some of the physiotherapy related journals also subscribed, because the moment it goes, the students' feedback, the administration was very supportive. And then we also explored the other possible free database that gives us some of the easy way to access the thing. The administrative support was also a problem. When I started introducing this curriculum, my colleagues, professional colleagues, why do you think we need this? Already our students are burdened with many of the subjects. Why evidence-based practice? It was a bit difficult to convince, but anyway, we went ahead. Then the acceptance for evidence-based practice was a challenge. So those are all the challenges we faced, but still, to overcome that challenge, what we did after learn, we didn't stop only to teaching the students. We started conducting workshops across the state. Through the university was supporting. I could go to different universities 3 times a year, a 3 days crash course, which was designed, and I taught them all the 5 A's of evidence-based practice. Especially I was familiarizing with Pedro, Cochrane, and some of the ICO resources. The point is like, why Pedro and Cochrane? Because Pedro freely available, so that's one thing, because that's the reason people say that I'm not having to access the database. Pedro is freely available. So that created an impact. If you see today's Pedro, 8 of our students, those who are trained under this, are Pedro raters. They volunteer. They completed their course and now they're working elsewhere. But that's how I could see the behavioral change on them. And then the Cochrane, sometime back, but last 2 years, Indian government stopped subscribing Cochrane. Before that time, Cochrane was subscribed by the Indian government. So we can access anywhere the Cochrane database across the country. So that's what we introduced these resources, and we trained them, and we started seeing the results, how they go back. So that's how I explained, this is how we introduced this course. The small sessions, you could see it's all small group. We divided them into the small groups and they were interacting, and okay. And then they went for this project. It was supervised by the person who were all trained, and the topics based on the clinical problems faced, the articles, they used Pedro score. Later we taught them all the other things. That was some of the projects which was submitted there, and you could see the difference, the number of projects. And then we also explored this. When we introduced Cochrane database in the entry-level curriculum, that was the first time we started doing that. We had an opportunity to present this during a Cochrane colloquium which happened in Clan. So what we did, we introduced the Cochrane systematic review, and then we demonstrated them how to use the Cochrane library. And they went with a case scenario, they could be able to identify the systematic review which matches their PICO, and then they were able to analyze the results. So we obtained the feedback, and then we also conducted a kind of a test. We gave an MCQ on how they performed on that. And then the search skills we assessed through the group activities and the Cochrane systematic review consultations. Again, the case scenario was given and whether they were able to identify the Cochrane systematic review. Because at that level, we wanted them to identify the evidence. Because once they are there and later when they proceed further, they will be able to implement it. The impact they could identify the systematic reviews. Some of the students even completed their trial, the title registration with Cochrane, and they're continuing with the systematic review, entry-level graduates. That was one thing I saw when we really create if we inspire them, they will go long back. One systematic review, they submitted it under review. These are all the students, entry-level graduates. Once they completed the study, they were continuing. We could see the faculty members' involvement automatically. Some of the faculty members, they came with, why can't we start looking for the trial registry, systematic reviews? So this was the short-term effect. I just to see the long-term impact, because it is 2013 to 2007 we started introducing, and we could we have to wait and see. Just you hear from a student. She's one of the final year student.
My name is Priscilla Crasco, and I'm a final year BPT student from Fadamulla Medical College. Pedro is one of the simplest search engines that we've come across. It has helped us a lot throughout our literature review in our final year. It helps us, it gives us an access, as in it helps us to easily access articles. It gives us a detailed search, and the website that is on the Pedro, they actually show us how we can distinguish between a simple search and an advanced search. Like, everything is easily understandable on the site. So especially for first timers like us, it's very easy to access Pedro.
So that's the database. Now this student, he graduated in the year 2010. Okay, now currently he's working with the NHS UK. I just asked him whether, before coming to the conference, I want to really see, the long-term impact, whether it is. I just asked him, can you tell me, I told him I'm going for an evidence-based allied health conference. Can you tell me how this impacted? That's what this guy.
Hello everyone, my name is Alan D'Souza, and I work as a musculoskeletal physiotherapist here in the UK. Firstly, I'm delighted to send my best wishes to all of you all at the conference there in Adelaide, and I hope you'll have an amazing one. I've been asked by Professor Narasimhan Swaminathan to speak about how evidence-based practice has helped me in my career as a physiotherapist. I did my undergraduate degree under Professor Narasimhan Swaminathan, who was the head of the department. He was the first one who planted the seeds of EBP in my life. The knowledge of evidence-based practice has improved my clinical reasoning skills drastically. It has helped me make accurate diagnosis and rule out differential diagnosis during assessments. It has taught me the value of specificity and sensitivity of special tests in order to get diagnosis of particular conditions. Evidence-based practice has also helped me in developing highly beneficial rehabilitation programs and management strategies.
That's as a teacher, I told him I'm going for a conference. Can you? That's all. As a teacher, I was very happy when I heard that. There are many mails from the students, and they say they really value the evidence-based practice course. One student completed a master's degree last year from UNISA. She came here for her master's degree, and when I was interacting with her, she said, that's the key, that's the one make a difference when there are other students from India from different universities. So as a teacher, I felt, okay, that's what we need to keep focusing, thanks to ICA. So better impact, how it created an impact on the clinical aspect. That's another one. The students and faculty members, they started appreciating the importance of having evidence-based practice in the clinical setup. The outpatient department caters, in a day, our average patients is 160. We had 48 physiotherapists working, including the postgraduate students. The number of patients are more, with inpatients load is more. When we started implementing, we could see an autonomy to an extent. The medical professions used to dictate, do this. A patient with back pain, give interferential therapy for 8 days and core stability exercise for 3 months. They prescribe. But we could change that. But now that university, till today, you can go and see that practice is changed. I wish that could be extended to the whole country. So we came out with that guidelines, evidence-based protocols. So in the ICU, especially my area is critical care physiotherapy, when I went to mobilize for the patients, the physicians were not allowing me. No, it's not safe. Don't mobilize my patient. Don't touch. Till the patient is on ventilator, don't touch me. But don't touch my patients. But when we started introducing evidence-based practice, when we started introducing the protocols, yes, you can do. You know what you are doing. So you follow the protocol and you do it. Because we involve them in the protocol development team. We call them, could you please join us? This is what we are doing. And we see the systematic reviews and what is that. Of course, it's not like the guidelines what we were talking. We just prepared the protocols, and this was very well accepted. Even we prepared a protocol for the entire hospital for endotracheal suctioning for the nurses. Because one example is that saline instillation. Saline instillation, you may be aware, the saline instillation was commonly practiced. But there was no evidence for that. When we prepared this protocol, we could convince them, and now that has become the property of the hospital. So this was recorded when the hospital went for a national accreditation. I was very happy as a physiotherapist when we were there during the closing audit meeting. The audit committee specifically mentioned this. This shows the hospital is looking for the protocols. You know, personally that impacted. In a medical school in India, to recognize by the doctors, it's very difficult. When I was moving out of that university, I was promoted as the position to the vice dean. It's not only the work, it's with the teamwork that I felt personally, you know, these things could create an impact for allied health professionals. This is one of the examples, you know, I just took it, I was just screening, you see, this is what they used to prescribe, short-wave diathermy. Now, there's no short-wave diathermy. You know, but after we saw the prescription is changed, now this thing is how I know, kindly advise physio exercise. We feel that evidence-based practice is one of the key. If I could spread this to the other hospitals in India, that's going to be again. Okay, coming back to the other part. Now we hear from India. Now Kuala Lumpur. I was very happy when I saw yesterday's Karen's list of guidelines they selected. The second guideline is from Malaysia. I was happy. Oh, the grade was 4, you know, the best guideline. I ran to Jenin and I asked, is there anything for rehabilitation? Because I know Malaysia rehabilitation is not accepted. Allied health professions are still struggling. But Jenin said, yes, there is only one recommendation out of all the questions we asked, multidisciplinary. I went and referred back yesterday night that guidelines, yes. I could see that. But anyhow, what we did here I had more freedom because this is one university. We had the freedom to develop the curriculum. So when we revised the curriculum, when I was given charge to revise the curriculum, we introduced the evidence-based module. Thanks to the learning management system, we could introduce this with a blended learning. You know, we use the blended learning model. So you could see that the students can access the discussion boards and the blogs. They could do all the things. Yesterday you saw the results of, my colleague was presenting the first 2 batches, how they were perceiving. So this is what, again, you can see, this one is from the recent batch. This was not included in the previous one. Now we are going to compare because we fine-tuned the teaching methodology by seeing the results of the study, and we modified, you know, where they are lacking, and, you know, how we can provide them more help in appraising, all those things. And we could see again the difference. You know, this is the student from Malaysia. Now she's working, she's graduated. She's working in a hospital.
I was introduced to evidence-based practice during my bachelor's in physiotherapy, and currently I'm practicing as a physiotherapist in a musculoskeletal setting, and I do very often rely on online databases to search for articles to support my treatment plans. I'm very glad that the course which I undertake in my university has taught me on how to effectively search for the articles that we want, and most importantly on how to get the articles from proper online databases. Back then, the course was taught in a very practical approach, whereby students were given the opportunity to directly engage.
So they were given the practical approach. You know, because of the learning management system, I could change the teaching methodology. So they were doing the things. You know, one of the students during the evidence-based practice, and she understand when she went for clinical postings, she came out with the question, I want to find out what is our clinical therapist, what they are doing. She converted that into a final year project. This was published in 2017 Hong Kong Journal of Physiotherapy. So that, again, I could see a positive change on the student. This is a final year student project. It's published. The question came from the student. Because you are teaching here, what she said, you are teaching here evidence-based practice. When I go for clinical postings, my observations, yesterday my colleague was discussing, the clinical therapists are not following any evidence-based practice. Should I identify what is there? You know, we did it, and it's published also. We can see what we did. This is one of the barriers we are facing in Malaysia. The clinical practitioners are not familiar with evidence-based practice. So again, thanks to Professor Karen and Jenin, we could, they came down to Malaysia, and you could see we could have a clinical practice guidelines 3 days workshop for the clinical practitioners and the clinical preceptors where our students are posted, because they are not under control, they are not with the university, but they are working in the medical school, the hospitals where our students are going. So we could train them, and we need to follow it, we need to track it up, how this is going to be useful. So what we are looking for, feed forward, what we understand from the learning, especially from the less resourced countries or developing countries. Now I'm just reflecting, those days it's less resourced, but the resources, now if you have an internet, you cannot say you are less resourced. Only thing is internet. Everybody uses their smartphones. The Wi-Fi is available everywhere, in India also. Even public places, the government started giving Wi-Fi. So now we cannot say less resourced. What we are thinking of, starting a short courses, like MOOC, you all may be aware, massive online open access courses, especially focusing on the clinicians, because they can do on their own time. You know, we should not train them with a full-fledged course because they are busy and all those things. You know, what they really need, that's what we are looking for. Probably that kind of things may change the scenario in Malaysia and India. And the training, the clinicians and trainers should be focusing on creating a strong network with the developed countries. That may change the allied health science practitioners' evidence-based approach in future in these two countries. Okay? So with that, I conclude my lecture. Again, thanks to Professor Karen and Dr. Steve for bringing this level for evidence-based practice in these two countries. Of course, I always remember, he says, live as you were to die tomorrow, but learn as you were to live forever. So learning that's the key. For me also, even the students, I say, you should be a lifelong learner. So evidence-based practice is the key. I'm strongly encouraged, I believe it can take the profession to the autonomy level. Okay? So that's, EBP could be a vehicle. Of course, there are various factors. EBP could be one of the vehicle. Thank you very much. Any questions?